What's going on, everyone? Hope you all had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. For those of you here who are in the US, however, for those who are not in the US, hope you had a great weekend either way. Just always like to note that because I know we're wrapping up the long weekend here on the US side of things, so hope everybody had a good one. But wanted to hop into this video, and I feel like this will be a little bit more of a technical deep dive overall because of the fact that after my last video, I posted about why I was wrong on the Fujifilm X-E5 and why I actually absolutely love that camera. I think it's a phenomenal camera, but I also had some people ask me, both Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, ultimately on why would you want to buy the X-E5 over the X100VI? And I know I also brought up in my last video that I did end up picking up the X100VI, mainly because my wife did want her first Fujifilm camera, so we decided to get both. And while I did pick up the X-T5 for a quick second, but ended up swapping it the moment that the X-E5 came in, I wanted to make a quick breakdown video, not necessarily saying pick one over the other, but reasons as to why you might want to pick one over the other. And it's simply from having both. I think it's important to break down just kind of the use cases, what the main differences are, just from a very high level, more so layman's terms level. So while it's more of a technical dive into the cameras, I'm not gonna get super granular on, you know, image quality, anything like that, or super deep dive specs on the cameras. Breaking it down, the X-E5 versus the X100VI. So let's get into it. And like I said, I'll kind of go through some different segments in this, but you know, overall, I'll start with the fan favorite because everybody, the internet just freaked out over this camera in general, and it's been beyond hard to find. I was lucky enough to grab one. So the X100VI, what's the main draw to this camera? And when it comes down to it, it is a great camera for both professional photographers if they want a more pocketable, travel-friendly camera. And on the flip side, it's also a great entry-level camera because of the fact that it is the typical point and shoot. And while I do say it's a point and shoot, it's not necessarily like your Canon G7X or, you know, some of the Panasonics or just other, you know, very pocketable cameras, but it's a point and shoot because it's a fixed lens. There is no interchangeable lenses. You can buy a teleconverter if you want, that can make the field of view a little bit wider. I wouldn't do that because it takes away from the pocketability. But overall, point and shoot camera, fixed 23mm crop sensor lens when it comes down to it, which is roughly a 35mm point of view from a full frame perspective, but it's also got weather sealing and it's got the built-in ND filter. And on top of that, because it's just a very great feature, it does have the optical viewfinder, which even though you can use the electronic viewfinder on it, if you want to be very classic, just point and shoot, but be able to see what your field of view is going to look like, it does have that OVF on there. When it comes down to the X-E5, which I did just, you know, drop, but we look to be all good. So thank you, SmallRig, for this great case. You know, ultimately, get off my eye focus. This does help with the durability a little bit, I hope. I haven't seen anything wrong with it. When it comes down to it, the number one benefit of why I choose this over the X100VI is because of the fact that it does have interchangeable lenses. And for me, I like to play with different, ultimately, fields of view without having to worry about cropping. While I do shoot in RAW when I'm using the X-E5, I also do the RAW and JPEG. So it's like, it's just based on what I'm feeling that day. I personally absolutely love this 35mm XF, which is the f2 from Fujifilm. So this is pretty much what's on my camera at all times, or a 27 2.8. So when it comes down to it and why you would choose one over the other is the simplicity of this camera versus the flexibility of this camera. That's how I break it down. One of the more technically focused type notes that I will mention using both cameras, I've heard some other people say this as well, is I know they both have the 40 megapixel sensor from Fujifilm, which is with the X-Trans 5 processor. It has all the new AI built-in features with autofocus, focusing on pets, planes, cars, motorcycles, all these different things. They both have the same setup. literally internal specs wise, and they both have IBIS, which is fantastic, which I know the previous XE body did not have, and it's been a huge sell for a lot of people who love the XE line. I do find that the autofocus on the XE5 is just a little bit faster, and I can't tell you why. Maybe it's just a software update overall. That's my personal experience with it. So if anybody else has played with both and disagrees with me, feel free, drop a comment. Let me know. Maybe I'm just off kilter. Maybe it's just my models overall. That's outside of that. I mean, from a technology perspective, the other thing is, you know, they both do 4K and 6.2K. Unfortunately, what I think this would have made the XE5 stronger is if they did offer the open gate video recording that they did on the XM5. I don't know if it had to do with the transition from the 26 to the 40 megapixel sensor, and Fuji just hasn't set that up yet, but they both shoot 4K, both shoot 6.2K, maxing out at 30 frames per second. So the video is very good, but one thing to note ultimately is that while these are cameras that do have very impressive video quality, they're a photo first camera when it comes down to it, but they both offer great video specs. Just, you know, it's the use case. So sorry, I just sneezed, but I cut that out. So what are the unique features that I've already talked about? Because this is going to be one of the bigger draws of one versus the other, right? So like I mentioned, kind of going back to the X100VI is the style. It's very classic. You know, you don't have to worry about changing lenses. Because of not having to change lenses, you have the weather sealing as well. It's not waterproof, or weatherproof. It is weather sealed, and I did get an additional, you know, lens on there just so I can get that quarter mist diffusion that I personally like. It also has the OVF, which I mentioned, so OVF and EVF, and then really that's like the main setup. I mean, it's a camera you can pull out once you either go to the film simulations or build your own custom recipes the way I do. It's really based on just being able to pull out a camera and go enjoy the moment. And this camera is fantastic at doing that. I think it's why the internet has blown up over this camera specifically. I do love it. I wish I would have gotten the black one, but like I said, my wife wanted this one, so she chose the silver. And it's a phenomenal camera. Like there's nothing lacking from this camera when you're going to buy it. If you know pretty much everything I previously said, if that's what you expect going into this, that's great. And it does everything that you'd want it to do. Really, there's nothing wrong with this camera. The only difference, I would say, because this is just one like notable feature, and I think I pointed this out on my last video as well, is the XE5 does offer this selfie screen. Personally, for me, that's not a huge draw. I'm not gonna really use that at all. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll be wrong, and I was just wrong about that use case, just like I was wrong about the XE5 in general. But as somebody who likes to be able to switch lenses, and I mean, one of my favorite lenses I actually use is an old Minolta lens, which I can reach over and grab it because I actually have it available for this video. So I set this up. It's a 50mm 1.7. It's fully manual, and this lens came out in 1971. Slapping this on this camera, it's one of the things that I did all the time with my XM5. It is incredible. It's just my personal experience. So that is kind of my sentiments on if you want the flexibility. Once again, this is the more flexible camera. It doesn't have the weather sealing, but I do have the weather sealed lens on it right now. It's just based on personal preference. It's what you want to do. That being said, here's kind of coming down to one of my final points on the differences between the XE5 and the X100VI is body alone. We're just going to talk about price. So the XE5 comes out to $16.99 US. That is for the body alone. For the body and the new 23mm 2.8 lens that just came out by Fuji, I don't think you can even get those on the market alone yet. It does come out to $18.99, which brings me to the price of the X100VI. The X100VI is $18.99, and ultimately it's been due to price fluctuations And as a result of tariffs here in the US, these have crept up. If I would have bought this, I want to say a week or so before, I think it was at $15.99 originally, then it went up to $16.99, which is when I bought it. It's now at $18.99. And that's a very expensive camera. But once again, it's still a phenomenal camera. I'm not going to say it's not worth the price, because the fact that if you want to get into the purists, but not really the purist, like this is the same price as the Leica Deluxe 8, which that does have a zoom. It's a point and shoot, but it's a micro four thirds sensor. I would go with this over the Deluxe 8. This versus a Q3. I'm not going to get into that debate because I don't have a Q3. I haven't played with a Q3, but I do want a Q3. Maybe someday. But that's what it comes down to. So if you want to if you are already in the Fuji ecosystem, you already have Fuji lenses, and you don't care about the fixed lens, then yeah, go for the XE5 because you already have lenses you like. I will say the one thing to note with the interchangeable lenses is like this is a small camera body. I did add the small rig grip on there, but all things considered, it's not, even with this tiny grip, like this is probably like the second biggest lens that I would go for, like maybe adding on a lens like this size, like the 50 that I have. That completely takes away the portability, in my opinion. If you want to throw a zoom lens on it, do that too. Like it's really solely up to you. But if you don't care about switching lenses, you just want an incredible camera that you can pull out, click and shoot, the X100VI does have you covered. So ending thoughts, I've already said it multiple times. Do you want the flexibility or do you want the simplicity? Those are my final thoughts. I'll drop some pictures here from both because I feel like it's important to note that it's the same sensor. You're getting the same quality images. It's just, in my opinion, it's a little bit faster on the autofocus. So drop a question, drop any thoughts. Let me know your experiences with either of these cameras. Tell me if I'm wrong. That's fine too. I apologize at the end for all those. I didn't have rain in the video today. I was downstairs eating dinner. So I wanted to hop on here real quick before the long weekend ended and get something out for everybody out there. So appreciate y'all tuning in again. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button. This channel is slowly starting to grow and I really, really do appreciate everybody just continually coming and showing support. This is an absolute blast for me and I love doing this. So I'd love to continue to keep putting out content. And I actually have some overdue product reviews that I need to get to. So those will be coming out a little bit later this week. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. See y'all out there.